So this month we'll be focusing on the body. And of course, come next month, we'll be focusing on the spiritual aspect of life, which is ever so important. And that will close our series. But I do hope you all been enjoying the series and, better able to take care of your body and learn a lot like myself. So we just want to continue to thank you for coming out and hope that we will have a wonderful presentation today and next week. Okay. Good evening, church family, and welcome to another of our series, Step Up to Wellness, Healing the Mind, Body, and Spirit. Today, we are blessed to have Dr. Anil Blanchard, and he's going to talk about cardiovascular health. Just to tell you a little bit about Dr. Blanchard. He's President and Program Director of the Cardiology Fellow Program at Broad Health Medical Center. Graduated from Montessori's University School of Medicine, a Seventh-day Adventist institution. Worked his way up all the way of Howard Medical School at the Birmingham and Wolmer's Hospital doing both basic and clinical research. A teacher by nature who loves to share, hear, and listen. And today, without any further ado, we want to welcome Dr. Anil Blanchard. Give him a big round of applause.
Okay, good evening to all of you. So I do love to teach, but what I realize when you are teaching, you have to sit down and listen. So, I don't want to give a lecture tonight, but there will be a portion that I will be asking you questions, and then we will have a discussion, all right? So the disease portion of cardiovascular health, I will do a slides presentation so that you can know, what you are preparing yourself or what are the changes that you need to do so that you don't end up with this type of problems, all right? And then after we'll have a dialogue. So when I was thinking about how to do this presentation, I asked myself, if I was in the pew, what would be the question I will ask, the cardiologist? And then this is the question that I think I would ask. So, if I were any one of you sitting there, I would say, well, what are my chances of having a heart attack or developing cardiovascular disease? That would be the questions. And then, I want to take time so that you can, guide you through this slide so that you can understand, based on the different type of cardiovascular affectation that you have or you're trying not to have, all right, and just explain to you what these slides mean. So these are a list of problems, and some of them that you recognize. DM, everybody recognize diabetes. Everyone recognize hypertension. This is smoking. And ApoB, ApoB is the protein that actually carry the bad cholesterol, the one that we call LDL in the body. And then here, all right, so for each of them, you have what we call the ratio of the likeliness of you having your first heart attack, okay? So for instance, if you are a smoker, your risk of having your first myocardial infarction is it's threefold. If you are a diabetic, it's actually 2.4. If you have high blood pressure, it's twice. If you have ApoB, which is the high LDL, so we'll call it the high LDL. So 3.3 times. So out of these four, smoking and high cholesterol is actually the worst. But if you notice what happened, if you have any one of those three, then you have a sudden increase in your risk of getting your first myocardial infarction, your first heart attack, which is 13%. And then from there on, anything that you add, you see the drastic change in terms of you having a myocardial infarction. So if you have diabetes, you smoke, you have high blood pressure, your cholesterol is high, the bad cholesterol, and then you are obese, it's a guarantee you end up with a heart attack, all right? Okay, so here's the thing. When we talk about heart disease, right? Everybody hates cancer. Everybody is very concerned that, you know, once you have cancer, it's a bad diagnosis, it's a bad outcome, right? But you being in this room, you are more likely to actually die from heart disease, okay? So cardiovascular death here in the 1,000 in the United States, this is a paper in Circulation. So even if you add cancer, accident, diabetes together, you know, in particular in women, you still will die from heart disease. So, and this is just the importance of knowing what it's all about and actually what you should do to modify it or at least to decrease your risk of having this problem. Okay, so when we talk about cardiovascular health or cardiovascular disease, it includes all this. High blood pressure, you know, I mean, to be fair, that we all eventually develop hypertension. It's better that you have hypertension when you are 95 years old than when you are 37, for instance, right? So this is coronary heart disease, this is stroke, this is congestive heart failure, this is atrial fibrillation, which is an irregular rhythm. But all this, you know, coronary artery disease, stroke, heart failure, and atrial fibrillation, the majority of these patients will actually have hypertension. So thus, if you are thinking about what should I do in order to decrease my risk of having any form of cardiovascular affectation, hypertension has to be in your mind, okay? So just pay attention a little bit regarding this graph to understand high blood pressure and what happened with age, and just a difference of 20 millimeters of mercury when you are measuring your blood pressure, okay? So this is the diastolic blood pressure, which is the bottom part when you get your reading, and then this is the systolic blood pressure. So there are different ways you can look at this graph, right? Most of you would know a normal blood pressure is 120 over 80, okay? This is a number that, you know, everyone is accustomed with, all right? So each of these line here is a different age group, all right? So this line here is 40 to 49. So if you are in this group 40 to 49 comparing to someone, you know, for example, in the 70s, right? And then you're looking at 80, right? Because we say 80 is good. But see what happened as you increase in age and your risk of dying from heart disease. So 120 over 80 if you are 40 is different than 120 over 80 if you are 70, all right? Because as you age, your risk of dying from a heart disease actually increase. That's one way to look at this, right? Another way to look at this here if you look at the systolic blood pressure here, so if you start at 140, right, and then you increase by only 20 points to 160, you see suddenly your risk of dying from heart disease is actually double, all right? So if you're walking around with a blood pressure of 150, okay, over 85, over 90, it's not 200, I understand, but it still puts you at risk of having problems as you go along, okay? Now, this is what happened with patients with hypertension, okay? So high blood pressure is associated with 69% of patients who present with their first heart attack. 74% of patients with heart failure, okay, actually will have hypertension. The first stroke, 77% of this patient is because of high blood pressure. Roughly close to 300,000 deaths in the United States, it's obviously because of hypertension. And then, as you can see, this is a very expensive disease. Okay, so most of the time, okay, as you can see in the slides here, patients with hypertension tend to have other risk factors. And if you remember the first slide that I showed, if you keep on adding the risk factors, your risks actually increase quite a lot. So looking at the slides here, less than a little bit, half of patients will only have high blood pressure. Another 40% will have high blood pressure with another risk factors, either obesity, hyperlipidemia, and diabetes. And then 14% will eventually have hypertension and 2 additional risk factors. So, now it's me asking you these questions. So, are you convinced? All right. So, if you are convinced, then what do I do? And this is where we're going to start our dialogue. What should I do to have a good cardiovascular health? And again, it takes you back, to the same slides, all right? If you are a smoker, what do you do? If, unfortunately, you have diabetes, what do you do? If you have high blood pressure, if your cholesterol is high, if you are obese, if you have psychosocial issues, stress, for example, what do you do? All right. Again, remember, 1 in 3 adults have 1 or more types of cardiovascular disease. And here's the question for you. How many of you, for the last 6 months, can tell me exactly what the blood pressure is? 2, 3. Okay. So, Maris, you don't know what's your blood pressure? All right. So, the only way for you to know if you have high blood pressure, there has to be a number. All right? There has to be a number. Either you go to the barbershop and get the number, either your friend is a nurse, you get a number, or either you go and see your physician and take the blood pressure. But there has to be a number. So if there's a number, you may be sitting here, and then you may be walking with a blood pressure of 200, over 100, and then you don't know. So that's the first thing you would want to do. So 10 ways to control blood pressure, and I put au naturel. All right? And then here's the thing. Let me tell you why I put this word natural here. When I sit in the office, right? So I will have patients who doesn't exercise at all, who have the blood pressure, and then we will engage into this discussion about medicines are bad, and I'm doing natural stuff. And the last time they took a walk is probably a couple of years ago, all right? But yet they tell me they use garlic. All right, garlic is good. And then they tell me they use this very bitter thing. No, not aloe vera. Sorosy, right? So sorosy. But again, if we are talking about au natural, what is the best thing to do au natural? Is to walk, right? So I am going to go over all this, and then this is when I'll be asking the question. So why is it important that we maintain a normal weight? Why is it important? I'm sorry? To work harder. So if you increase your weight, okay, you're going to have too much fat around the heart. Actually, most of the fat is going to accumulate in the belly, right? And then when the fat accumulates in the belly, what happens, this fat is actually active, right? It doesn't sit there and just waiting for you to use it as a source of energy, and then that is the problem. And then that's what we use to, when we are doing a risk assessment, we actually measure someone's waist to see what the waist is, because we know the bigger the waist, the more active this fat that I show you the ApoB, which is the protein that carries the LDL, the bad cholesterol. And actually this fat here, what it does, it goes underneath the wall of the blood vessel, and then the body recognizes it as being foreign because it's not supposed to be there. And this is where the whole process of plaque formations happen. And that plaque itself, this is a plaque that rupture, that cause heart attack. So the very most important thing that you want to do in order to prevent cardiovascular disease, and then if you are talking about cardiovascular health, is to have a normal weight, all right? And then how do we define a normal weight? What's a normal weight? You check your BMI, right? So you want to know what's your height, and then you want to know what's your weight, and then there is a calculation. But where you really want to be, you want to be below 25, all right? And as your BMI increase, your risk of having a myocardial infarction or heart attack actually increase. How do you lose weight? I'm sorry? Exercise and diet. Okay? Exercise and diet. And I think somebody's going to talk. All right. What type of diet if you want to lose weight? What are the things that are important? I'm sorry? Less calories. Anybody else? I'm sorry? Vegetables, okay. Sugar. I'm very happy you mentioned calories, right? So there are two approaches in regard to how you want to lose weight, right? There's a very interesting study that was done that looked at if you are going to lose weight, should you concentrate on the number of calories that you are taking or actually what you are eating? For example, I can go on a 2,000 calorie diet and just go to McDonald's and just count the calories. That will give me 2,000, right? So the total calories doesn't tell the clear way to lose the weight, right? So if the total calories is not where you need to concentrate all, what would you like to do? Okay, so what are the diet that we know? We know low-fat diet, and then we know low-carbohydrate diet, right? All right. So this is what's very interesting. So what would be, give me an example, a low-carbohydrate diet, for example. Vegetables. Fruits, nuts. That's it? Water. I think water is a very good answer. The reasons water, if you are going to replace water with something, is more likely to have sugar. And then this is not the type of sugar you would want to have, right? Which one? Proteins. What form of proteins? Plant-based proteins, right? Plant-based proteins. Now, when we're talking about carbohydrate, you have to do the distinction. I'm going to give you an example. Brown rice, white rice. What do you pick? Why would you pick brown rice? Tastes better, okay. I'm sorry? White rice is refined. The content of actually calories and carbohydrate is higher. The sugar itself, when it enters your body, there is a peak, and then it drops instead of a slow and plateau that you find in the brown rice. Right, that one. Brown rice digestion is better, all right? And then you get a fullness quicker than white rice, right? So these are the reasons. So lost extra weight is important, okay? So I just wanted to share this with you, okay? Lose extra pounds and watch your waist time. The goal is not radical change, but a reduction in calories of 500 a day and or an increase in physical activity to achieve a weekly deficit of 3,500 calories, okay? So, losing weight is actually not difficult. It's actually to do it. For example, if every day you cut 500 calories, at the end of the week, you will lose 1 pound. Okay? Because 3,500 calories is actually 1 pound. Okay? That's the way to do it, right? And then if you are not going to do it this way, you will have to do a lot of activities so that at the end of the week, you lose the 3,500 calories. I'm going to give you an example. How much exercise you need to do to lose 500 calories? 10, 15 minutes. If you lose 70 calories, that's the best you're going to do. Two hours off. Bicycle. If you are going to lose 500 calories, you will have to play one-on-one tennis for 1 hour. Okay? You will have to run roughly, you will have to run 5 miles. Okay? You have to do an, intense exercise. That's what it is. Okay, in order to lose that. So if you notice, if you are going to lose weight, exercise is definitely good, but you have to cut calories, right? And then the type of calories you are going to ingest is going to be very important. Back up. Oh, no slides. Okay. Questions? Any questions? Does race have an impact on the level of myocardial infarction? Okay, so, you know, in medicine, race itself, you know, as an independent risk factor for certain diseases, in particular cardiovascular diseases, have not been demonstrated, okay? So what is seen in cardiology, you know, for example, is that there is a discrepancy on first presentation, meaning that it seems that, you know, people of the black race tend to present late for the disease, all right? And then the manifestation of the disease tends to be more advanced. And what do you think the reason would be? Diet. Well, I'm going to give you a data since we're talking about race. Over the past, actually, the last decade, this is the first time that mortality was higher in the Caucasian population in the United States. All right, across the board, right? Now, I'm gonna ask you, why do you think is that? So you asked about race and diseases and so on, right? If you start from the 1900 and then you're looking at diseases, minorities had a higher mortality, right? But recently, over the past decade, it has been around. So if you look at a population from the age of actually 25 to 49, in that population, actually, that was the first time it was shown that the mortality was highest in the Caucasian population. And if you remember what happened in the past decade, is what? No, actually, you know, we nearly went into a depression where there was a recession. So when there's a recession, what comes with that? Well, stress, but poverty, right? Poverty is a problem, okay? There are certain populations that you look in the United States, and then if you're looking at race, and then if race is the parameter that you are using, you can compare, you know, black race and, for example, Caucasian who lives in the Appalachian Mountains, in what you call the Bible Belt of the United States, right? So what you will encounter, there are two factors that you are going to encounter. Diet, okay, the Southern diet is not a diet that is cardiac healthy, and then poverty is a problem, you know. So the fact that you are a black person doesn't mean that you are at a higher risk, you know, of having a myocardial infarction. But if you are black in the scale of economics, you know, that particular group tend to have less resources compared to the counterpart, okay? So that's the reason. So, but diet, obviously it's important, right? And the reason I say diet is important, and then the classic example, right? So you have certain populations, you know, that emigrate to the United States. Say, if you say northern Japanese, for example, you know, in the northern part of Japan, coronary artery disease, blockages in the arteries is not common. It's their lifestyle, okay? They eat is mostly a fish-based diet that they have, right? And then they do a lot of walking, right? So blockages in the arteries is not often seen. And then when you look at their cholesterol, the level of cholesterol, the LDL, which is the bad cholesterol, is around, you know, 50, 60. And then we are recommending people who are at high risk for heart disease to have the LDL, which is the bad cholesterol, you know, below 100. So in the minorities, you know, education is the problem, you know, and That's why we are here, right? We are here to have a discussion about how to prevent problem. You gather the information and then you act on it, and then that will decrease your risk. Because if you look at what we were saying, okay, so if you look at the first thing is that number one, number two, you know, if you are paying attention over the past 20 years, or I would say probably over 30 years, this has been a significant problem in the United States. It is believed now 2 out of 3 adults in the United States are overweight, right? With the overweight comes what? Diabetes. With the overweight comes hypertension. With the overweight comes the high cholesterol, okay? So it's actually really a problem of lifestyle. If you really want to stay away from the office of a heart specialist, you do this basic thing, you are guaranteed to be less likely involved in his treatment. The medication that nobody wants to take, then you'll be fine. But this has to be done. And then I'm gonna tell you, I'm the physician who sits with this patient. This is the last thing people want to hear for some reason. Okay, people want a quick. Give me my medicine, I'll be fine, and I go, right? And then this is what we need to do when we are talking about cardiac health. Okay, so exercise. Okay, exercise is very important. Whatever disease, at whatever stage of the disease, if you compare yourself who's active to someone that is not active, you will do better being active. And I'm talking about, you know, advanced cancer, for example, right? Okay, these are studies that were done looking at patients who have advanced cancer, comparing, you know, a group that is, you know, active and moving around comparing to one that doesn't move, right? And then the outcome, if you exercise, it's better. So, how do you know how much exercise you should do? All right. So this is the guidelines recommended by the CDC. Okay, it calls for at least 150 minutes a week of moderate exercise or 75 minutes a week of vigorous exercise for a healthy adult. Okay? And then just to help you tonight to know what is moderate, a moderate walk would be 100 steps per minute. Okay, so that would be a moderate amount of exercise. And then if you're talking about vigorous exercise, 139 steps per minute will be the amount that you would want to do. All right? So on average, those who manage to maintain a significant weight loss has 80 minutes a day of moderately active, like walking, or 35 minutes a day of vigorous exercise, like running. What am I saying? So you embark yourself on a diet, right, trying to lose weight. You want to lose 60 pounds, and then at the end of the day, you lose 60 pounds. And then 3 months later, you know, you're back to 60 plus. Right? Oftentimes, this is what happens, and the question is, what's going on? Now, it's me asking you the question. What is going on? Why do you think this is happening? What are the problems? Inconsistency. How would inconsistency make you gain more? And sit down, okay. And watch TV, okay. What else? A balanced diet. A balanced diet. So does it make sense to do a diet for a particular time? Doesn't make sense, right? It has to be a lifetime. So what you are doing is not actually you doing a diet. You are doing a change of lifestyle. Okay? So diet may not be the appropriate word that you want to use if you want to achieve a goal. It's actually lifestyle might be a better word to use. Because lifestyle involves what? It involves everything. It involves waking up in the morning and do what the first thing? Pray, right? Now, when you start by praying, in all the things that I showed you, okay, you are affecting this, which is the psychosocial factors, right? And then there's a change of lifestyle. So what are the psychosocial factors that you think will predispose you to an increase in blood pressure? Why are you stressed? Well, if you are stressed. Okay, economics, environmental, family issue, work. Exactly, right? Then how would you deal with that? Okay, I'll give you an example. So you are in a job, you hate the job, you're like, why am I here every day and I hate it? Right? And then you lose the job and then you're complaining you don't have a job. So what's the problem with that picture? Huh? You have to change your mindset. The goals have to be different. The expectations have to be different. It's all about expectation, right? It's all about expectation. It's about how you define things in your mind, right? You are working in the same condition. Somebody come and singing. You come like, you're ready to set the whole place on fire because you have two different people doing the same thing, but the expectations are different, right? And then that's how when I'm not saying that's how you solve it, because mind you, there are situations that you find yourself that you didn't, somebody brought it up, right? But still, at the end of the day, the outcome of that situation depends on you, right? Because like you said, it's expectation. So you have to be able to know how to set your expectations, right? Just like me rushing to prepare this lecture here, of course, there was some intense, but the outcome of having this dialogue, okay, was more important than what the time allowed me to do, right? There was a level of stress, which, by the way, stress is needed, okay? The overstress that we don't talk about is actually the distress, but the distress is really start actually here, right? So these are the things that we need to know how to work with. Okay. Okay. Low cardiorespiratory fitness may pose a greater risk to health than obesity. All right? Skinny Blanchard cannot sit down and think that he's not obese and don't exercise, that he's going to be fine. Right? My BMI is 23. If I don't exercise, my risk of having a heart attack actually increases. All right? In this church, we are good about diet. We are very good about diet. I think it's all recognized all around the world that Seventh-day Adventists know what to do when it comes to food. All of you have the data. There's nothing I can teach most of you here, if not all of you. Right? But the exercise portion, I don't know. Okay? And I'm going to say it again. Low cardiorespiratory fitness may pose a greater risk to health than obesity. Okay? If there's one thing you need to remember tonight, is actually this. All right? Compare with normal weight people who were physically fit. Unfit individuals had an increased risk of death regardless of what they weigh. Okay? Those who were fit and overweight or obese did not face a significantly greater mortality risk when compared with normal weight individuals. You have to be active. Okay? You have to be active. Somebody have a heart attack, we give them medicine. The next thing we send them is to cardiac rehab. That's after a heart attack. You don't go a heart attack and just relax so that you don't stress and get another heart attack. If you do it like that, you come back with a second heart attack. We send you out to an exercise program. You come with congestive heart failure because the pump is weak, your lungs get flooded with fluid, you can't breathe. We give you medicine, we make you feel like crazy, you're breathing better. Give you medicine to help your heart get stronger, and then you know what we do next? We send you to cardiac rehab. Because the exercise itself is going to strengthen and prevent the dilatation and the weakness of that muscle. All right? Exercise. Okay, so we know that eat healthy. We know salt is not your friend. Salt is your enemy. All right? Sodium is your enemy. How much salt do you need a day? Anyone? 2,000 milligrams, 2 grams, that's all you need. Anyone eat pretzel? That small bag of pretzel has around 950 milligrams. That's half what you need. Canned food, no good. It's all salt. If you like spaghetti, the ragu sauce, that's all salt. Okay? I give you a sample. This is what I tell my patients. They come, had a heart attack, the heart is weak, they're feeling fine. And I say, well, if you want to come back, you know what you do. You stop at the local McDonald's, you had a lunch, and guarantee you 48 hours you're back. Salt. My patients love to go on cruises. They go on cruises, either they end up in my office or in the hospital. Why? Salt. Right. Well, too much food is not really, because they can eat a lot of vegetable and they'll be fine, right? Because I have a good patient of mine who's a chef. He said, food tastes too good. 2 things you need in food to make it good. Salt and fat, right? These are your enemies, okay? So you're salt. Okay, limit the amount of alcohol you drink. Now, this is from the Mayo Clinic, okay? Limit the amount of alcohol you drink. I know you hear that all the time, you know, a little bit of alcohol is good for the heart. All right? I am not sure if this is really true, because when you look at the data and the study that they have pointed to, This particular population, these are people that live in the southern part of France, around Italy, around this area. The lifestyle is totally different from what we are doing here. They walk a lot, okay? It's a low-fat diet. And then the most important thing they had, believe it or not, was, believe it, you know what it was? A sense of community. You know, these people were all together. It's more like village work. Everybody gets together because what it does, it reduces the psychosocial stress. Then, yes, they did have their wine, you know, at night when they are having dinner. But they were not having dinner by themselves. The whole family was at the table. All right? But out of all this, the easiest one to pick out, it's the wine. All right? But I think in this study, the wine wasn't the core thing, but it was all that I just mentioned. Quit smoking, that's an easy one. Okay? Smoking is bad. How much smoking you need to do to have heart problem? 1 puff. 1 puff, that's all it needs. You take 1 puff. This is something which was elegantly shown at the Montreal Heart Institute. That's something I work on. You take 1 puff, the nitric oxide, which is the lubricant of the blood vessel, actually decrease. 1 puff, not 1 cigarette, 1 puff. I just hope no one smokes here, because I will not talk to you. Okay, cut back on caffeine. You don't need caffeine. Reduce your stress. Monitor your blood pressure on a regular basis. You know, there is no way that you are above the age of 25 and every year you don't know what your blood pressure is. It just doesn't make sense, okay? You have to know what your blood pressure is at least once a year. Because why? Eventually you will develop high blood pressure. In particular, if you are not paying attention to what we discuss. And then we are not by ourselves here. You know, we are not living on an island. Get support is very important. You know, the Don't Worry, Be Happy song is actually a good form to relieve your stress. Okay, so actually the next 2 slides, basically what they say is, you know what to do. And the last slide, what it says was, do it. All right, so with this I conclude. I hope you learned something tonight. Thank you.
So much. I bet you all didn't know this psychosocial aspect had so much to do with cardiovascular disease. All right, so that's why we are here. That's why we have a church family. Thank God for that. All right, so we're just gonna, a huge thing, get together in circle, and we're gonna see, just hold somebody's hand, and let's just pray together.
Hi there. I want to thank you for joining us for our worship service today. I hope that you enjoyed it and that you are blessed. If you are looking for more uplifting content, I'd like to invite you to join us at Plantation psdatv for more uplifting content. If you're in need of prayer, please join us at plantationsda.org and let us know how we can pray for you. And if you ever happen to be in the Plantation, Florida area, please don't hesitate to stop by and see us. I'll see you soon. God bless.